the Middle East. And Vanessa, the hospital attack by the Israelis, well, that was making the news this morning. What have you got?
Yeah, so basically, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Because the connection is not great. Okay. So this was a meme that was put out by MintPress News yesterday that Israeli snipers had killed 4 patients and 2 nurses at the al-Shifa hospital. Worth pointing out that al-Shifa hospital was actually built, it was the first to be built in the Gaza Strip under the British mandate, so in 1946, even before the 1948 ethnic cleansing by the Zionists of the Palestinians. In the last 24 hours, Israeli snipers have shot inside al-Shifa hospital, killing 2 nurses and 4 patients and a paraplegic man, according to Doctors Without Borders. The threat of snipers, according to Dr. Abu Silmeye, has prevented him and other hospitals patients and at least 1,000 placed individuals from leaving the facility. We've not been able to go to retrieve the dead bodies outside for fear of getting shot, he said. Look at, these are just some of the items that have been put out in the last 48 hours. Incubator babies have died because it's impossible to regulate temperatures for them. One paramedic who tried to reach the incubator section was sniped and killed. Hundreds of dead bodies are lying around the hospital and snipers are preventing burial. There's no food or water in the hospital. It's under full steam. The ICU unit is full of patients without power. Oxygen and dialysis units are not functioning. 3,000 patients are thought to be inside the hospital. 15,000 displaced refugees, both inside and outside. Doctors are isolated in their sections. They're not able to cross from one section to another. The surgery building was actually struck by shelling. Displaced refugees trying to flee or surrender have been shot. Other smaller hospitals are overwhelmed with patients and do not have the capacity to deal with the critically injured. They would always traditionally be sent to al-Shifa. And a more recent today, just before I came on, report from Euromed Monitor that the Israeli forces have now al-Shifa hospital. They've turned it into a military barrack and detention center, and there is spread abuse of civilians, refugees, medical staff, and doctors ongoing. At the same time, of course, we're seeing the familiar propaganda that's been circulated, particularly from Israeli and Western media, that is now again being walked back. The IOF itself has now put out a statement saying that there were no weapons and there were no hostages in the tunnels associated with Shifa Hospital. And I want to focus here on President Herzog. He's put out, you remember the claim that Hamas had instructions on chemical weapons. That was his previous claim. And now in an interview with the BBC, he revealed that a children's room in a civilian home in the Gaza Strip was used as a Hamas terror base, in which, guess what, an Arabic copy of Hitler's book, Mein Kampf, somebody did a very nice image of Colin Powell holding up Mein Kampf in Arabic there to demonstrate what we think of Herzog's claims. And then he threatened yet again, and this is a familiar pattern, in an interview with The Nation, he basically threatened the EU and the UK with ISIS, of course, knowing full well that Israel has been funding and supporting and providing arms and hospital treatment for both ISIS and Al-Qaeda inside Syria. So let's hear what he says to The Nation, and then followed by a little animated movie made by an Israeli outreach source showing you what will happen if you don't support Israel and how dare you complain about the genocide that's ongoing in Palestine. So let's just roll the video.
Atrocities. These atrocities cannot be accepted in any way. It means it has nothing to do with the conflict. It has nothing to do with the borders, with settlements or anything. This is simple, clear barbarism, Jew hate, other hate, which is advocated by ISIS, Hamas, Al-Qaeda, which if we weren't here, then Europe will be next, and probably the United States is the end game for all of them.
But anyway, we needn't fear because war criminal Tony Blair may be appointed as humanitarian coordinator in Gaza. I didn't produce it, it was produced by Al Mayadeen, but I thought it was quite apt. Remembering that Tony Blair, who quit in 2015 as the Middle East peace, definitely in inverted commas, boy, only it will miss him as a journalist, Robert Fisk, who sadly a couple of years ago wrote back in 2015. He was in place for 8 years and achieved absolutely nothing. As Fisk said, if only he'd resigned more than 2 years ago after Palestinian leaders had themselves characterized his job as useless, useless, useless. Israel, of course, would never have described him as this, stoutly condemning the campaign for Israel's delegitimization. Blair talked about this as a form of bias, which was an affront to humanity, a choice of words he never used about the massive civilian casualties inflicted by Israel on the Palestinians of Gaza. And the last video that I just wanted to show was put out by the Cradle. And I think interesting the origins of the leadership of the far-right extremist government that is in power in Israel at the moment. We've got the connections, particularly of Netanyahu, to the revisionist Zionists that collaborate with Nazis in Ukraine. But I think it's interesting, the origins, very few indigenous Jews in the far-right government that is in existence right now. So let's just see the video. I mean, I just find that very interesting in the light of what's happening in the Ukraine and the fact that the IOF has been not only fighting in Ukraine, but active in the regime change operation coup in 2014. Interesting.